I mean, I think of Meher Baba. He was my first teacher that I was introduced to. He had a person devoted to him live in a hut for 30 years, meditating all day long. So when Meher Baba died and this guy came out of the hut, they thought, oh, well, tell us what's it been like for you? What's it like coming in? He said, nothing happened. I just sat there. I love Meher Baba. This is what I did. He told me to sit in the room and meditate, and I sat and I meditated, and I don't know if I got anything out of it at all. So what are we willing? Are we willing to endure not being able to experience the benefit of the shifts when they occur? This is what surrender is. Surrender is the willingness to continue to stay true to the unfolding of our own spiritual development, even if there's no evidence. Now, there is factors in this. For example, one of the reasons we could be in an obscured period for a long period of time is something in our life that we're still addicted to. That's not allowing us to break through the transition point. It could be that we have created, and many spiritual people do this, their cabin in the woods, their isolated little temple where they don't have to meet anything in the world they don't want to meet. And that could be making the transition point last much longer than would be necessary, or in a situation where we're more vulnerable, more open to insults and jars and disturbances that would break us out of whatever it is we're unconscious of that's still preventing us from making it through that transition point. Our willingness to be upset, our willingness to step out into the fray, to experiment, to explore, excuse me, is what allows us to move through those periods more effectively. And the other thing that allows us is grace. And we can't say with grace. You might say that by constantly insulting ourselves, not allowing ourselves to get too comfortable in our spiritual path and the unfolding of what attainment we've come to, opens us to grace. If grace is an accident, then that makes us accident prone. So we stay open. Okay, so it's great. I really like how it is. I really don't want it to change, but I know something's missing. So what am I willing to do that would allow for me to see what is still yet hidden, what's still left that needs to be revealed, poked, shown to me? So when you're with a spiritual teacher like Mooji or like myself or anyone, what happens is your consciousness becomes brighter, inevitably. Depending upon how long you stay with them, usually you can see the tapering after you leave. You can, depending, the longer you stay, the tapering takes longer. The shorter you stay, the quicker the tapering. Your ability to hold on what you get when you're with a spiritual teacher is a reflection of your maturity, your ability of your system to stay and hold the increased consciousness and bring that into your life is evidence of your previous work. But what is it that breaks us through the transition where we eventually become no longer dependent on an outside person or form or circumstance to keep pushing through each level? Because once the consciousness gets to a certain point, once you've pushed through a number of these obscured periods and not get defeated, not slip back into the old adaptions of your life, stay true to your purpose, you get to a point where the ability to recognize the transition point becomes one of the markers of the next challenge before you. It becomes the definer of your battle. And you seek them out. rather than instinctively run from them. So this is what happened when I spent so much time in India, and because I shed so much of my life, I had nothing to go back to. That it was able to establish a relationship with existence where these transition points, in the Gita is called dejection, became evidence of an unfolding of the next integration, level of integration. See, understanding the nature of the journey is very, very helpful to use our intelligence, our highly developed intelligence, to be strategic about how to support yourself so that you can continue to go beyond your usual patterns, your attachments, your addictions, or the structures that have shaped your life up to now. And this is where we then can choose a teacher. You can then choose a teacher to be the means by which you can keep kicking yourself in the butt. And they have to be living. Dead teachers can't kick you where you need to be kicked because they don't have bodies. So you need a living teacher who can call you on it, who can insult that thing in you that you didn't even know could be insulted. So that is you choosing to be insulted. And then your relationship with the insult is, wow, look at how reactive I got to that. And then you can come to responsibility for part of you that still has an ego, that still wants to be seen a certain way and wants to have this regard from the teacher. Then you can be in responsibility for the acceleration that can occur around a teacher. And that's everything. Because you're the one who travels the path. You're the one who sets yourself up to come out of the old, to stay in the vulnerability and the uncertainty, and to keep having faith in the unfolding of the process. So there you go. If trust comes up, our ego is in the way, right? Because what's trust about? It's really about distrust. And what are we distrusting? Well, in fact, we're distrusting ourselves because we don't yet know ourselves. So no, trust can't do it. It's not enough. You have to have faith in your purpose. So the issue of coming out of the relationship, if you look at what is trust and what is distrust, it's really an emotional issue. It's about, can I trust this person? Like, can I trust my father? Or can I trust my mother? Can I trust this person to not hurt me or to not guide me incorrectly? So that means you've given your power away already out of our immature parts that doesn't know herself enough to know that she is who chooses the opportunity to experience distrust, to meet it. What does that mean, distrust? Well, the issue is betrayal, right? There's no greater charge in the collective consciousness among men or women than betrayal. So this is ego's kingdom. The possibility of being betrayed usually sets the boundary of what we're willing to invest in. That's outside of our known self or the areas of life we trust. Our dog, maybe. Our cat, maybe. Because if you look at the individualization of the West, we don't trust anybody. Yet we're always seeking to be able to trust. Like a child's always seeking for the embrace of the parent or the approval of the parent. It's our immaturity. It's our lack of development as souls traveling the journey to the truth of what we are by ourselves. Because no one else travels your journey than you. Now hear from me the final secret. This is the 18th chapter, verse 686. The most esoteric of all truths, the most hidden. Only those who have been touched by devotion knows of this truth. As you are extremely dear to me, not dear, extremely dear to me, I'll reveal it to you for your benefit. The extremely dear means no caviling, no remaining doubt, no questioning, no wanting to do it your way. Always contemplate on me. Be devoted to me. This will enable you to come to me. This is my promise and assurance to you, since you are dear to me. Surrendering all your duties to me, take shelter in me alone, and I shall liberate you from all error, from all sin. Grieve not. So devotion can take us to a place that we could not possibly go with our human mind. We could not possibly go when we're still negotiating territory for our ego with what is divine is asking of us. There's this process of giving up the territory, pulling the fences back, back, and back until there's no more need for fences. And then there's the guru. I want you to know, I had trouble with guru. It was really not anything I was looking for. Even when my awakening happened, I kept clinging to, well, I had no guru. This happened spontaneously. And I hardly ever gave ground, even when I knew that it was through one of my teacher's students that the transmission came and set in motion my awakening. Just presented the hell out of having to give ground, even though I knew he was the dominant figure of my life. In my experience, my mind still hung onto that part of me doing it myself, that figuring it out myself. I was one of those self-taught people, and it was like my resolution to figure it out by myself. And I took pride in that. The whole organization of my life was to be able to do architecture by myself, to be able to anything I wanted to accomplish by myself. Snow camping by myself. All of this was by myself. Now it has a role to play. I had come to a place of personal responsibility because I had no one else to blame for why everything was fucked up or when it would go bad. And there is something to be said for that, because when the spiritual awakening came, I could say, oh shit, I got it really wrong. I could see the error blatant, keep pushing in my face, even though my nature was still jumping forward with this willfulness, this resistance. Devotion is screaming away, and I'm being willful simultaneously. This is where the two polarities of the teeter-totter, trust and distrust, start coming up next to each other. And then there's this kind of coexisting paradox. Hate you, love you. Need you, don't want you. This whole structure of what happens in this compelling, powerful relationship. And you know who's always there? Divine. Even when we're kicking and screaming, just like a kid. Doesn't get it their way, and the mom doesn't want to be held kicking and screaming. At the same time, he's kicking and screaming in the arms of the mother. I do a lot of this. Holding people while they kick and scream. But so did my teacher. So did all teachers. They're all like mothers, because they have all been kissed by the divine and became divine themselves. So this is the transition point. This is the rite of passage, where we move out of a foundation of ego and individual self to a foundation of love and faith and devotion. And out of that spontaneously comes this purposeful movement that is God's, that is divine's, to manifest a quality of being as a lived person in existence that reflects to the highest degree of perfection possible that divine romance. So probably the biggest error I've done in the United States was talk about me as a guru. Pretty much, bad robot stamp. Right off the bat. 4 strikes against me right off the bat. But damn it, that's what I became. I didn't look for it. I didn't want it. I didn't even know it was there. But when it came, it was completely, it's just like, I got a nose on my face. I'm guru. It's not anything any different than that. So what is it that does that? Well, I unwittingly, what did it was my ability to love and have faith and devotion in my teacher, who proved to be frequently completely untrustworthy. You have to go, the rite of passage means you have the right to passage. You have the right to make this passage where everything you held on and made near and dear is being betrayed or abandoned or taken away from you. And what happens is this crazy passion for more, this crazy fire that makes you even more nuts. You start behaving in ways totally counterintuitive to what your ego has told you was truth before. It'll periodically rise up and say, what are you doing? Get the hell out of Dodge. And maybe you will. But if something in you has you stay, you'll make another rite of passage. Because every moment we meet in ourselves, that which is not having faith, that which does not know to trust love, or that which at that moment is not capable of devotion or receiving God's grace, will rise. We will be able to expand our ability to experience love, to experience being in residence in that quality of freedom and choice that faith gives us. Faith, to be in a state of faith, is to be in your own power. Is actually a state of liberated from what you thought was true, even if right now you don't know fully what is true. It's a state of choice, which has this willingness to say yes, even when everything else is saying no. It's your own true authority emerging in the person of you. Faith completes, at the end of this journey, when you become the object of your faith. You become that. It becomes, without question, the truth of what you are. Without question, that which kissed me is myself. That which was my guru is myself. I am what they are. We are what each other are. And in that way, the love is consummated. The child is born. The new guru is born. The new channel for love and devotion, grace into the world is born. This domain we're talking about entering into is so beyond our idea of what spirituality is, so far beyond our story about what it means to be spiritual and what is true, which is currently very prevalent in the Western tradition. We really losing the opportunity of unbounded realized teachers because we're looking for somebody we can trust. And you really want to have the opposite. You want to be with somebody you can trust. And you choose to put yourself into that situation so you can discover what in you you're trying to protect. What in you that still defines the part that's still immature, that still wants mommy or daddy to do it for you. The safe one, right? That's what human egos are looking for, right? That's why we have cats and houses in the woods, why we have a regular spiritual practice, why we play the music, why we do the mantras, It's really, we're just looking to be safe. But that's not going to do it on the spiritual path. We're going to have to choose to go to a place where we venture outside of the box of what had defined us as a human being, to discover the wild freedom of what it is to be alive as a conscious being on this planet. Now, this doesn't mean that we come back and we're these destructive forces, because what will happen is at some stage you'll realize that they're all you, and how can you harm you? That are all trying to come out of the obscurity, and how can you not be there for them to help them come out of the obscurity? The motivating principle is no longer about, can I trust this person or can I not trust this person? Is they worth my effort or are they not worth my effort? It is simply an arising that comes spontaneously. Then we're an instrument. Then we're the instrument for this force of grace.